Well, welcome to presenting the candidates. I'm Bob Caprillion, and I am happy to have as our guest here at Watertown Cable, candidate for re-election, Tony Palomba. Tony, welcome back to Watertown Cable. You're getting to be an old hand here. This is your, you've spent 12 years as a counselor in town council. You're looking for your seventh time around, so there's nothing new that that you haven't seen here before. So
well, I appreciate you doing this, Bob. I actually always look forward to this with you. It's been becoming a bit of a 2-year habit, but I always look forward to it. It's a pleasure to speak with you. We often have good conversations. So,
well, let's start off with what I think is the most important vote the new town council is going to take in 2022, and that would be to replace our present town manager, Mike Driscoll, and he's been here like 30 years. I mean, some big number, and I think I've used the reference. It's like replacing Tom Brady with the Patriots. Coming in behind somebody who is really, I think, done a terrific job, and certainly he grabbed. Well, I remember when he came to office, the town fiscally was in tough shape. I mean, he walked into a hornet's nest. And he righted the ship. Even the pension funds they just weren't funded. He's leaving with it fully funded. And I can go on and on. So he did a terrific job financially. So when you're looking for a replacement, that has to be one of the areas that I think if I were doing evaluation that I would be looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the areas. That we obviously want someone who has the skills and the knowledge to help keep the ship financially stable. I don't think there's any question about it. I think we're looking for other things too. We're looking for people who have some real experience about what it means to be in a community that's growing, is changing. We have a budget now that's a $164 million budget. We have an increased population. We have a lot of development. Some people like it, some people don't. So we're looking for someone who can manage a lot of things besides the fiscal part of it. The fiscal part is important, and I think we will clearly find someone who has those skills. But we're also looking for someone who has interest and initiative around, let's say, climate change, who can put forth some policies and procedures, make it put their own signature on some policy issues besides financial issues. And those policy issues could be climate change. The policy issues could be how to make development more acceptable to people, how to work with companies so that we get better mitigation. There could be a policy around hiring. How do we increase the number of people of color in our workforce here? So that I think what we're looking for is someone who can do the finances, but also someone who has some ideas about what do they see as important for a local community of 36,000 people. How do they see a place? Where do they see they want to put their mark? On what issues do they want to put a mark on? Mike Driscoll put his mark on finances. Are we looking for someone who could do that, but also put their mark on other things? Maybe it's climate change. Maybe it is.
Tony, jump in here for a minute, because you were this is part of your of your platform. Is that one of the criticisms is that there wasn't enough input from the public, and the divide between the community and town hall, and there just wasn't enough communication. And you have suggested, what was it that the title that
Well,
community.
one of the things we suggested was, and this was put in the budget by the town manager at the last go around, was an assistant town manager who would focus on communication. So there'd be someone whose job it was to increase communication. Now, this is different from the responsibilities of the IT department. We have a whole new IT department, as you know, under Chris McClure. He's got, I believe, 5 staff now. We've gone from 2 to 6 people in that department, and it's really made a difference. But we're talking about someone who's focused on communication, and that's one thing that I think the public has been saying. And it also became very clear through the Charter Review Commission, the Charter Review Committee, that communication was a high issue. It was an important issue for all the members of the committee. One of the things that we did pass, and what I'm particularly proud about, is that we put in a full-time community engagement officer in the charter, so that the charter now says Watertown will have a community engagement officer as part of its work. So community engagement, public participation, communication, these are all things that I think are necessary for people to feel that their government is reaching out to them, and that they can reach back to the government, and that they feel that there's this open communication and engagement between government, and that's not just town councilors, but the town government and themselves.
You know, you folks spend a lot of time in the Charter Review Committee, and you know, I'm somewhat aware, but I'm not sure exactly what the changes that have come up. Why don't you just kind of?
I'll pick out a few of them, if just a couple, if that's okay. I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah, good.
There's quite a few of them. Well, one of them is the full-time community engagement officer. Another change that we made was had to do with the creation of a citizen advisory committee. And this is in part wanting to increase citizen participation in the selection of the boards and commissions, the members of the many boards and commissions we have in Watertown. Those are all volunteer-based boards and commissions. And how do we increase participation in that from citizens? And so what the advisory board would do would be to just what it says. It would be advise the new town manager or any town manager on helping him or her figure out who would be some of the best candidates for those positions. We also made a change that the future, this is I think very important, and it may not jump up high on everybody's agenda, but I think it was very high on all the committee members' agenda, is that the next Charter Review Commission will not be made up of 9 councilors and 6 residents. It will be made up of only 3 councilors and 6 residents. And I think it became very clear in this discussion, during our discussion, that the councilors were having a little more influence into this process, and that there were a few too many voices, 15 voices, and then Kenny left, so it was 14 voices, to try to come up with some decisions that we all agreed upon. So that the next round will be the next time we do this, and we're going to do it in 5 years. We will do it in 5 years.
Not 10 years.
Well, we'll do it in 5, and then we'll go back to the 10. Yeah, and in 5 years, and so it'll be 6 councilors, 6 community folks selected again by the town council president, and only 3 councilors. And I don't know how he'd come up with deciding who were the councilors. So the community engagement officer, the change in the makeup, there were a number of smaller changes that tried to increase accountability and transparency around the town manager's hiring process, not hiring, evaluation. There was a couple of changes around that. And the resident advisory committee, which, as I say, is a committee of residents helping the town manager choose other people to be on the boards and commissions. And then the final thing that we came up with was a human rights commission, which I think is important, though the details of it are left up to the council and the creation of an ordinance. But the establishment of a human rights commission was another major part of the CRC, I call it CRC, I'm so used to it, Charter Review Committee, the CRC.
What is it, Tony, what's the process now? You're making these recommendations. Are these things actually to be implemented? What happens next?
Well, the next step, and we've moved quite a bit along the way, Bob. Right now, we have accepted the changes. The council had to accept the changes from the CRC. So we voted and accepted all the changes. Those changes had to go in front of the Attorney General, Martha Healy's office. She had to review them to see if they were constitutionally valid. And they only rejected 2 changes, and they were very minor changes. So the council then voted to accept her. You know, we have to do what she says, it's constitutional. So the changes are very minor, which made us all feel pretty good that we made changes that, you know, that stood up against, that stood were acceptable to our Massachusetts Constitution. So only 2 small changes. So then the next step is for the town attorney, who is now looking at it. We did make one decision that there'd be 2 questions on the ballot. There'd be a question on the change of name, so that there is a question that said, we supported in the CRC that we change our name from the city known as the town of Watertown to the city of Watertown. That's be our name, the city of Watertown, rather than the city known as the town of Watertown. And that'll be one question. And then all the other changes will be put into a second question. And these will be yes or no answers. And so the lawyer right now is summarizing the first question, which is not too hard to summarize because it's a yes or no, do you support the change or not? But summarizing all the other questions, that will take a little bit of work. And that's what will be on the ballot. And that information goes from there to the town council president, from the town council president to the clerk. The clerk has to add it to the ballot. So the ballot with all our names on it for a re-election or election will also have these 2 questions on it.
Okay, Tony, I'm gonna jump in here a minute because our time is winding down.
Yep.
And, you know, you're kind of, as I see it, one of the banners that you carry can be associated with the name Tony Palomba is affordable housing.
Yeah.
So I really think I'd like to give you the opportunity to give you a couple of minutes to state your position of where we are and what we'd like to be.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited about this because at a meeting in 2 days, and I know this will be different because after we start playing this, I'll just say that on Thursday, September 16th, the Committee on Human Services and the Committee on Economic Development and Planning will look at the recommendations from the Department of Development of Community Development and Planning and the Watertown Housing Partnership, and they will include the creation of a municipal affordable housing trust. And the creation of this trust will make it easier for us to access federal state money, and also will be easier for us to move as a community when we see property that's available. So that's a big step. It's taken a long time. I did with my colleagues 2 years of hearings on affordable housing, and that was 3 years ago. So it's taken a long time to get where we are. The second big thing that will be is something that I think has been important, and I really wish we had done this earlier. That is, it is a nexus, NEXUS study, a nexus study which will look at what could the possible linkage fee be to development, so that everybody who's developing in Watertown would pay a certain percentage of their project to an affordable housing trust, well, to the trust. So that if you can imagine all the money that has changed hands around development in the last 4 or 5 years. If we had a proposal that 1% or 2% of that went to affordable housing, how much money we would be able to have in our affordable housing kitty. And the final thing that we're going to look at Wednesday, I'll make this quick, is community preference. That is it possible to have people here in Watertown having first shot at in the lottery at affordable units that are in that?
Tony, I have to jump in here, and as I said, you are a champion of affordable housing. And
Yeah.
I'm sure your website has plenty of information and you're available to share whatever information. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for sharing your time, your thoughts with Watertown Cable. And as always, this is
Pleasure.
our 12, you've been here 12 years, so we've done this before, and it's always a pleasure, Tony. Thank you so much for.
Well, thank you, Bob. I hope we can do it again in 2 more years.
And I want to thank you for watching, presenting the candidates. I'm Bob Caprillion, and I will see you next time.